It was close to midnight when Daniel began his shift as the night security guard. The hospital had been shut down for years, yet the city kept a guard on duty to keep away vandals. The first thing that always hit him was the silence, thick, suffocating silence that filled every broken hallway. The faint flicker of dying fluorescent bulbs painted the cracked walls in a sickly glow, and in the middle of one corridor sat a wheelchair. Nobody knew who left it there. It had been there for months. Every time Daniel passed by, he swore it shifted, just slightly. Daniel tightened his grip on his flashlight as he made his first round. His boots echoed against the floor, bouncing off the empty walls, sounding far louder than they should have. He hated the way the building seemed alive at night. The pipes groaning, doors creaking, and the faint tap of dripping water that followed him like footsteps. He told himself it was just the building settling, but deep down, he wasn't convinced. After all, every guard who worked before him had quit within weeks, and none of them would say why. Turning a corner, Daniel froze. His light swept across the end of the hallway, and for the briefest moment, he saw someone, a pale figure, standing perfectly still in the dark. His heart lurched, and he blinked hard when he aimed the flashlight directly down the hall. It was gone. The hallway was empty again. Daniel's pulse thundered in his ears. He tried to laugh it off, to convince himself it was just his imagination. But deep down, he knew he had seen something, and whatever it was, it had been watching him. Back in the security room, Daniel tried to calm himself. The glow of the monitors gave him some comfort. He leaned back in his chair, flipping through the camera feeds. Empty hallway, empty waiting room, broken elevator shaft. But then, his stomach turned to ice. On one of the monitors, in grainy green footage, he saw it again. A shadow, standing in the same hallway he had just walked. For a moment, it didn't move. Then, slowly, it turned its head toward the camera. Daniel's mouth went dry, because on the next screen, the figure was closer and closer, frame by frame. It seemed to be following him. The monitor flickered, static tearing across the screens, until every single feed went black. And in that heavy silence, from the hallway, just outside the room, Daniel heard the sound of the wheelchair wheels turning. James had worked the night shift at a small gas station off Highway 47 for almost a year. The place sat in the middle of nowhere. No houses, no towns, no traffic. After midnight, just endless dark highway and the faint flicker of the neon sign outside. To most people, the quiet would have been unbearable, but James liked it. Until one night in late October, when the silence felt different, almost watchful. He leaned against the counter, staring out the window at the fog rolling across the highway. In the shifting mist, the gas station looked like an island swallowed by darkness. It was 2:15 in the morning when James noticed him, a man standing at the far end of the store, by the refrigerator aisle. James hadn't heard the door open, hadn't heard footsteps, nothing. Just there he was. The man wore a stained jacket and an old cap pulled low, hiding most of his face. He wasn't shopping. He wasn't moving. He just stood there, staring at the counter with empty eyes. James cleared his throat and said, "Need any help?" But the man didn't answer, didn't even blink. James looked away for only a second, and when his eyes returned to the aisle, the man was gone. Trying to shake the unease, James stepped outside for a smoke. That's when he noticed a car parked at the far edge of the lot. Its headlights were off, no engine running, just sitting there in the dark. He squinted, trying to make out if anyone was inside, but the windows were tinted black. The car hadn't been there when he started his shift. He took a step forward, and that's when he saw it. The passenger door slowly opened. Nobody stepped out. The door just hung open, like an invitation. The fog swallowed the silence, and James felt the hairs on his neck rise. Something about that car felt wrong, deeply wrong. He hurried back inside, locking the front door. Heart pounding, he went straight for the security room to check the cameras. But before he reached it, something caught his eye. The stockroom door. It was slightly open. James knew he had locked it earlier. On the tile floor leading inside were muddy footprints, fresh. He froze, listening. The hum of the fluorescent lights seemed louder than ever. He forced himself to push the door open. The stockroom was dark, except for a single bulb swinging overhead. The footprints led between shelves of snacks and cleaning supplies, but stopped halfway through. No sign of the intruder. James whispered to himself, "There's no way someone could have disappeared." And that's when he heard it. A voice, a low, breathy whisper, coming from the dark corner of the stockroom. It said only one word, "Run." The bulb above him flickered violently, and in that moment of darkness, James swore. He saw the man from the store, standing inches away, his face pale, his mouth stretched into an unnatural smile. The lights went out. James never finished that shift. Harold had been the night janitor at Westfield High for over 20 years. By now, the silence of the empty building no longer bothered him. The creak of old pipes, the hum of the fluorescent lights, the way his footsteps echoed in the endless hallways. It was routine. But one cold November night, that routine broke. As he pushed his mop bucket down the hallway, he noticed how unusually still everything felt. The kind of stillness that presses against your ears. He wrung out his mop and got to work. The sound of water slapping against tile, breaking the silence. That's when he heard it. A faint giggle, a child's laugh, somewhere down the hallway. He froze, gripping the mop handle. The school was locked tight. There were no children here. Not at this hour. The laugh came again, echoing, bouncing off the lockers. He turned, scanning the hallway. Nothing. When he reached the end of the corridor, he noticed the glass door leading to the courtyard. His breath caught in his throat. The glass was smeared with dozens of small, greasy handprints. But Harold had just cleaned that glass not 15 minutes ago. Slowly, he reached out, touched the prints. They were fresh, warm, shaken. Harold made his way toward the gymnasium, where the sound of scurrying feet echoed. He pushed open the heavy double doors, and the cavernous gym spread out before him, dimly lit by the moonlight slipping through high windows. For a moment, nothing moved. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw it. Something small and fast, darting across the polished floor, disappearing into the shadows by the bleachers. "This isn't funny," Harold called out, his voice trembling, as it echoed back to him. "Who's in here?" No answer, just the sound of the bleachers creaking, as if someone was climbing them, slowly. Deciding to check the classrooms, Harold made his way upstairs. His footsteps seemed louder than usual, echoing in the emptiness. When he opened one of the classroom doors, his heart dropped. Every single desk in the room had been rearranged, placed carefully into a perfect circle in the center of the floor. The moonlight pouring through the windows cast strange shadows across the circle of desks, as if something invisible sat in the middle. Harold's mouth went dry. He whispered, "God help me." And that's when he heard it again. The laugh. This time, right behind him. He spun around, but the hallway was empty. The classroom door slowly creaked shut on its own, sealing him inside. The next morning, when the principal arrived, Harold was waiting outside the school, pale and trembling. He refused to go back inside. When the staff checked the classroom, they found the desks still arranged in that perfect circle. Not one of them remembered moving them, and to this day, no one has explained where the laughter came from or who it belonged to. Emily had been a nurse for almost 10 years, but the night shifts were always the hardest. By 2 a.m., the ER usually fell into a dead calm, the waiting room empty, the hallways echoing with the buzz of fluorescent lights and the steady hum of machines keeping patients alive. That night, however, something felt different. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, pressing down on her shoulders. She poured herself another cup of coffee and tried to shake the feeling that someone was watching her. Not long after, paramedics wheeled in an elderly woman. No family, no identification, just an unresponsive body strapped to the gurney. Her skin was pale, her eyes wide open and glassy, and her lips moved as if whispering something, though no sound came out. Emily leaned in closer, straining to hear. Nothing, just that silent, eerie movement of her lips. One of the doctors muttered, "We'll monitor her vitals." But Emily noticed something strange. The heart monitor showed a steady rhythm, and yet, when Emily touched her wrist, there was no pulse. Nothing at all. She tried again, checking her neck. Her wrist, still no pulse. Confused, she glanced at the heart monitor. It beeped steadily, but the woman's chest wasn't moving. Emily turned to grab supplies, but when she looked back, the bed was empty. The wires hung loose, dangling from the machine. The heart monitor flatlined, echoing through the room. Her stomach dropped. She ran into the hallway, scanning in every direction. The woman couldn't have just gotten up and walked away. Not with that body, not with those eyes. That's when Emily saw her. At the far end of the hallway, beneath the glow of a red exit sign, stood the old woman, perfectly still, her head tilted slightly, her glassy eyes locked on Emily. Emily's voice cracked. "Mom, you need to come back to your room." But the woman didn't respond. She only turned her head toward the door, as if looking for a way out. Then, slowly, she stepped backward, until the shadows swallowed her completely. Emily rushed forward, but when she reached the exit, the door was locked, and the woman was gone. Shaken, Emily checked the patient log again. Her heart nearly stopped when she read the note. The woman had already been declared dead, officially, 12 hours earlier, in another ward of the same hospital. To this day, Emily refuses to work the overnight shift alone, because she knows what she saw that night wasn't a dream. It was a patient who never left. Kelvin had worked the night shift at a lonely truck stop diner off Interstate 90 for almost 3 years. By now, he was used to the silence, the kind only highways in the middle of nowhere can give you. On stormy nights, the neon sign outside buzzed and flickered, casting strange shadows across the empty booths. Truckers came and went. But after midnight, the place usually stayed dead quiet. But one night, as the wind howled against the windows, Calvin saw an old pickup truck pull into the lot. Its headlights flickered once, before dying out completely. The truck rolled to a stop, and the engine cut off. Moments later, the front door creaked open. A tall man, in a weathered trucker jacket, stepped inside. He didn't say a word, just walked slowly to the counter and sat down. Calvin forced a smile. "Evening. Coffee?" The man gave a single nod, his eyes hidden under the brim of his cap. Calvin poured a steaming cup and slid it over. The man wrapped his hands around it, but never drank. He just stared at Calvin. Minutes passed in silence. The only sounds were the buzzing neon and the storm outside. Calvin shifted nervously. Finally, he asked, "You driving through or you local?" The man's lips moved, but no sound came out. His expression never changed. He just kept staring. Calvin turned away for just a second to grab change from the register. When he looked back, the stool was empty. The man was gone, but the coffee cup still sat there, on the counter, steam rising, as if he'd just been holding it seconds ago. Calvin rushed to the door. The truck outside had vanished. The parking lot was empty, swallowed by rain and fog. His heart raced. He ran back to the counter, staring at the untouched cup. The warmth radiated against his hand. Whoever that man was, he had been real, or at least something close to real. Desperate for answers, Calvin hurried to the back office to check the security footage. He rewound the tape to the moment the man walked in. His blood ran cold. On the screen, the diner door swung open on its own. The stool shifted, as if someone had sat down. And the coffee cup? It slid across the counter by itself, steam rising. But there was no man. Not on the cameras. Not once. Just an empty diner, with Calvin talking nervously to nothing. Later that week, Calvin told his story to a group of truckers passing through. Their faces went pale when he described the man's jacket, the old pickup truck, and that silent stare. One of them finally spoke up. "You're not the first. Folks see him sometimes. But that man died in a wreck just down the road, over 30 years ago." Since that night, Calvin still works the diner. But every stormy shift, when the neon flickers and the wind howls, he sets out a fresh cup of coffee at the counter, just in case the phantom trucker decides to stop by again.